Welcome to my channel. I'm very excited today. I'm excited because yesterday we did the inaugural presentation on a series that I am doing in collaboration with Dr. Louis Moiston. Dr. Louis Moiston is a political scientist, and he has for years wanted to launch a program that compels Jamaicans and citizens of Jamaica to discuss constitutional reform. Now, most of you know Jamaica is a post-colonial economy in that we were colonized by the British, and in 1962 the Queen of England gave us our independence. That order in council by which Jamaica was put in charge of her own affairs has required amendments for years, and quite frankly many Jamaicans have no idea what it says, what it does, and what they can expect from their government. So I think it is a good time for us to have that conversation. It's a big deal for me because my own company had a very difficult time at the hands of the Jamaican government. We were entering into the competitive field of telecommunications, a field that has been dominated by foreign investors, and a field which does require large investment and which serves a very necessary purpose. The United Nations has already made its own pronouncement that access to the internet is an essential right. It is a right that is as important as the right to life, the right to freedom, the right to education. Access to the internet is really the doorway now through which persons can get information and be in the best position to plan their lives and to conduct business in a modern society. I think we all agree the internet is very, very important in today's economy. Jamaica has a severe lack of access to the internet, largely because the existing providers have not invested enough in their business to allow all Jamaicans to have access at a reasonable price. And my company, a Jamaican company, Carousel, had taken this on, and we were so excited when we got our first license, and then when we got our Spectrum license, which cost the phenomenal sum of 20 million United States dollars. We were able to pay the first $7 million based on the payment plan, and the government canceled our license. So I was not a happy camper. I could not understand how it is that a citizen of this country, Jamaica, my country, was stopped in their tracks as they sought to make this major investment. So anyone who knows me knows that I would not put it down. And so it has been a rallying cry for me, seeking to bring attention to the deficiencies in our system, in our governance structure, and seeking to prevent anyone else from having that experience. I did an interview with Dr. Moiston some months ago, and it was so well received that it motivated both him and I to take this journey. And on Thursday, I did my first presentation. Now, needless to say, this is a subject on which I have written many papers. I've done presentations at home and abroad, and I have an article which I wrote. I don't believe this one was published locally, but I want to share it with my YouTube family. So here goes. I'm going to read, and I hope that I will do it in a way that does not take away from the natural flow of this presentation. The article is entitled Unlocking the Potential of ICTs, that is Information Communication Technologies, to Transform the Productive Capacity of Developing Markets. Now, usually when I write an article, I try to use a fairly academic title so that it can cut across both the casual interested party as well as someone who has a more academic interest in studying what is happening in emerging markets. So the topic is a bit weighty, but I have written it in such a way that is relatable. 15 years ago, I was asked to participate in a forum that was reviewing the effects of liberalization. I chose to deliver a paper on the above topic. My focus then was to review the social and economic significance of bringing friends and family into closer contact, increasing the entertainment value and opportunities to consumers, and the extension of the traditional markets for advertisers, from radio and TV to handheld devices such as the mobile phones and the iPads and the things that we walk around every day. Frankly, for my own part, I always have at least 3 devices with me. My MacBook Pro, which is small and easy to carry, an iPad, and a phone. So on any of those platforms, I'm a doorway to anyone who is advertising products. The area which I found wanting continues to languish in obscurity today and may even have slipped deeper into the mist. ICT firms and policymakers in emerging markets such as ours continue to see the public in a single-dimensional frame, as consumers only, and not as potential partners or producers of value-added products that can further monetize the use of ICT infrastructure. And I pause here to say that having worked on the ground floor of the liberalization initiative in Jamaica and in the region, I know that one of the things which were at the foremost of investors' minds was, when I spend all this money putting in network facilities in a small market, how am I going to get a sufficient return on my investment to incentivize me to keep offering new products and services to customers? These markets were all monopoly markets, a single carrier, and that carrier was guaranteed a certain return on their investment, regardless of what level of investment they made. So when the tide forced us into a competitive market, there was always the concern that carriers would invest their dollars in hardware and network facilities, but that these small markets with fairly modest income and persons in hard to reach geographical areas, that these markets would not compensate them for their investment. So there was always the thrust to find new ways to monetize the network, and that continues to be so. Consumers do not offer that level of excitement to an investor. You really need to have a lot of entrepreneurial activity taking place on your network for you to feel that you can make a return on your investment. The current hardships in accessing broadband networks that is being experienced in the CARICOM countries tells its own tale of how important the ICT infrastructure is to the life of a nation. Arguably, it is more important than the infrastructure of roads and public transportation. In fact, modern policymakers ought to recognize that all goods and services that are traded, produced, distributed, and consumed will touch and concern some part of the ICT infrastructure during its complete life cycle. Sustainable development, therefore, lies in adapting and creating an infrastructure that can reduce the cost of production, increase the speed or time to market, and enhance the user experience at different points of this spectrum. Every human activity can be expressed or experienced in a virtual or digital form through various means at one stage or another. Health services, education, sports and entertainment, worship and spiritualism, banking and finance, marketing and advertising, just to name a few. In the area of banking and finance, the development of cryptocurrencies is the ultimate proof that very shortly, trade and commerce can be conducted across international and physical borders without the involvement of a tangible medium of exchange. Banks and financial institutions, as we know them today, will disappear. There is always a tension between the forces that push for change and those that resist change. The energy emanating from that tension is the fuel for innovation and significant development. Existing business leaders and owners or managers of capital will resist any change that threatens the status quo or diminishes their wealth and power. Those who are oppressed, marginalized, or otherwise suffering under the strictures imposed by the system fight for change. It is the sad reality that oftentimes the change is of personalities only, and the system continues to thrive under new owners. Such has been the experience of Jamaica and almost all post-colonial societies. The Queen was succeeded by native-born imitators who continue to oppress and deny citizens in much the same way, except that now we do not even have the comfort of yearning for emancipation. The ugly result is that we experience an attempt to cannibalize the offensive body part in a bid for freedom. In this fight for life and survival, each combatant uses the weapons that come readily to hand. The rich and powerful use their wealth and influence to extract perverse verdicts from the civic institutions that are established to administer the nation's business. They can afford to surround themselves with high walls and expensive security systems in order to keep the marauding poor at bay. The educated middle class deludes itself by engaging in endless academic discourse, studying and exploring ideas that are fruitless and which they lack the resources to exploit, a complete abdication of duty. The restless poor clamor for attention through art, music, and violent explosions, but mostly we strive to escape our neighborhoods and our depressing reality through religion or education. Personally, I chose both, and in so doing, I found not only freedom, but the boldness to fight for change that can topple governments and revolutionize the lives of ordinary men. An interest in religion is not inimical to an interest in radical change. Christ himself has long been recognized for revolutionizing the religious system of his day, and his influence continues unchecked in 2020. The people of Israel were much like the people of the Caribbean in that they also had to cope with the trauma of slavery and other forms of economic or military oppression. The Israelites anchored their identity and drive for self-determination in the building and dedication of the Temple of Jerusalem. This enormous undertaking was the effort of King Solomon, and the opulence, grandeur, and splendor of that temple has withstood the test of time. By contrast, Jamaica's independence was launched with a Trojan horse constitution whose limitations continue to afflict us with unparalleled venom. In dedicating their glorious temple to God, the Israelites paid homage to the true source of their prosperity, purpose, and sustenance. In the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verses 13 to 15, they received an appropriate response from their God. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and heal their land. Now mine eyes shall be open, and my ears attend unto the prayer that is made in this place. That was verse 15. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 14, is among the most quoted Bible verses in this age of end-time prophetic disasters. The key to understanding these words that were spoken to King Solomon by God in a vision is in verses 13 and 15, where the foundation for this promise of healing was laid. God is in complete control of the disasters that befall mankind, and he will respond with healing when we turn to him. My understanding and belief that the power wielded by man in his efforts to dominate his environment is inferior and temporary makes me fearless in the defense of what I know to be my God-given rights. Each individual must recognize that their sustenance, health, breath of life, security, and place in this world is not conferred by the Prime Minister, their Member of Parliament, or even their Constitution. This is a very liberating idea that must be pondered slowly and carefully, because its effect is powerful and can lead to great disaster or great gain. History tells us that when man exercised this freedom to create a system of representative government, Jamaicans inherited our existing two-party system. Going further back, oppressive monarchical rule in Europe and elsewhere was tossed out violently to be replaced by tyrannical dictators and false democracies. And going even further back, the theocratic rule of God was rejected by Adam and Eve in favor of self-awareness, and subsequently by the Israelites in favor of a monarch such as existed in neighboring pagan tribes. In today's society, those who should think and act have fallen silent. We have become selfish in our pursuit of survival, forgetting completely that this world was designed to operate as a single ecosystem in which we are our brother's keepers. The innovations in science and technology that have allowed man to exceed the limits of time and space were created to advance the overall well-being of humanity. Through the use of technology, goods and services of every kind can be accessed by the ordinary person, irrespective of his location and level of education. By crushing competition in the provision of broadband internet services, the government of Jamaica has not only destroyed the business of the owners and innovators, but has given protection to the lazy incumbent operators whose only objective is to preserve their wealth and power. The inevitable casualties of this struggle are the children who can't access education and the country whose future is blighted. The strategy for unlocking the potential in this industry involves a combination of entrepreneurial effort and regulatory oversight. The current gatekeepers have demonstrated their lack of competence and independence. The damning evidence exists in a review of what currently exists. Radical changes are necessary in the regulation of the industry, and local investors must be allowed to participate freely. It cannot remain the exclusive preserve of the already rich and powerful. In countries that enjoy moderately resilient broadband networks, not even the best service, citizens in rural communities are able to receive medical care through various telemedicine facilities. Persons with disabilities are able to access medical, banking, and other services through innovative relay or value-added interfaces, which carriers are mandated to provide in order to ensure inclusiveness in access to technologies. Farmers and business owners in remote locations with herds of cattle, goats, or even large acreage of crops are able to use radio frequency technology to track and trace livestock or install and maintain electronic fencing that cannot be breached with wire cutters, and which operates as a warning system against predial larcenists. Online access to education services, to government services, and even to stay in touch with the elderly and the infirm during times of isolation, incarceration, or illness are but a few of the common benefits which the average Jamaican cannot enjoy under the existing state of the industry. Most of the regulatory and industry changes can be accomplished with minimal effort, but it requires cooperation, skill, and a mutually shared vision on the part of each main actor. Consumers must become more knowledgeable and insistent in their demand for improved services. Entrepreneurs must be prepared to invest for the long term, and policymakers must aspire for and maintain independent thought and action in setting the stage for competition and innovation. I know that we can forsake the misdeeds of the past and create a more productive and prosperous future. This call to repentance is not a religious event. It is a call for the return to values that matter, and for the ordinary man to take hold of his freedom and fight for his own survival. My weapon is my voice and the power of my words to bring conviction to the hearts of those who believe in something greater. This is an article that I wrote in December 2020. It spoke to a lot of the things that were rushing through my mind, crowding my vision at the time. And it was pushing me towards the initiative which Dr. Moyston and I have embarked on. I hope that as I share my thoughts and spur you on to greater endeavors, that we will grow together and prosper together. God bless you in this season. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for listening. Goodbye.